right. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Welcome. Good. Welcome back, everybody. We are live streaming, so we're just going to do this in one take. But I received the Frank Sinatra "We Small Hours" Tone Poet, a test pressing from Joe Harley. And I just thought it'd be fun to chat about it. I know there's been a lot of chatter online, so I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a preview of what you can expect. So we can get into it in a little bit. Chris, what do you think about the Frank Sinatra "We Small Hours" Tone Poet announcement?
Well, I think it's neat for people that are into Frank. I mean, I also think that it could expand the audience of tone poets a little bit, maybe even. Somebody sees that and they buy it and then they like it and then maybe they buy some other jazz records,
That's a great point. I was thinking that it would get people into Frank Sinatra who aren't too familiar with his Capitol catalog.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It actually might do the other thing where it brings people into the Tone Poet series and then they can explore some Blue Notes and some other things too. So that's a great point. So we do have a poll going. Our polls are brought to you by Jazz Bums Polling. Jazz Bums Polling is for entertainment only and does not reflect official data or endorsements. The poll is essentially if you're going to get this or not. So yes, no, or maybe. We have 14 votes in already. Most people, 64% are saying yes, 14% maybe, and 21% are no. So we'll check back in before we close out stream.
Yes.
So yeah, this is the test pressing from RTI. I do have a Music Matters Jazz test pressing. It comes in a very similar jacket, just plain white jacket. It has some information here. Let me see if I can get that on the screen for you guys. But it has June 3, 2025. So that's when the test pressing is from. So they've been working on this since the summer.
It's pretty quick, though, to me. I mean, maybe not.
We're going to get Joe Harley, the producer, on the channel closer to release. So he'll be able to kind of fill in all the details. There is some information that he did share with me around the source material. And I won't go into all the specifics, but essentially they ran 2 tapes during the sessions. One tape was the production copy, which has been used endless times. And there was another tape that apparently was not used or maybe even never used. And that's what was selected for this pressing. So that kind of does make it a little bit special too. But we'll get more of those details when Joe comes on the channel. I did have questions around the involvement of the Sinatra estate and Tina Sinatra, who runs that. I believe that they're involved as well. So it'll be interesting to hear how that relationship is and if they're going to be doing more than just this first release. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this. For people who know my background, Frank is one of my favorite artists. I have over 100 Frank Sinatra records. I have, I think, 5 pressings of this title, and I've had more, but I've gotten rid of them. I'll quickly kind of go through the pressings I have. So obviously we have the new test pressing Tone Poet from 2025, cut by Kevin Gray at Coherent and pressed at RTI. We also have, this is the, let me double check this. Okay, this is the 2014 pressing by Ron McMaster. I believe this is sourced from the tapes, but I can't confirm that. But this is a great sounding copy. It's the 2014 pressing, United States pressing, Ron McMaster. And this is an excellent sounding copy. However, I've had a couple of these, including this one, and there is a slight little bit of noise on this. So not related to the mastering, but the pressing. I'm not exactly sure where this was pressed, but this is a really good sounding copy. I also have a very first D1, D2 pressing. So this is the first pressing jacket. Let me just get that up there. And this is the back of the jacket. So you got Frank in Capitol Studio A there with the orchestra, who on a number of tracks, you have Harry Sweets Edison on trumpet. So one of the great jazz trumpet players. That's a first pressing. And I'll show you the first pressing label. So this is the D1, D2 first pressing label. You may be familiar with this. It is a super clean copy. However, visually super clean. However, it does play with noise. And I've noticed, like, I have another very clean copy of Birth of the Cool by Miles Davis, which came out, I think, in like 56 with the T label. That also looks clean and plays with a little bit of noise. So in my experience, the old Capitol records from the mid 50s the LPs tend to have some noise on them. So that's just my experience. So
That
that's
makes
the first pressing label. And then the early repress label, which the early repress jacket is behind me. So this would be, I think, 50. This is probably like 57 is this one, which is much more common. And people do like to collect these, I guess they're black labels. And if you get like Songs for Swingin' Lovers and Swingin' Affair and Sings for Only the Lonely, I think all the monos of those have this black label. So people do like to collect those. But for Wee Small Hours, it is not the first pressing label. The first pressing label was the one I just showed. It has the addition of a little ring around it here.
Oh.
And this is so the first pressing I have is a D pressing, which I believe means it's a Hollywood pressing. And this is an N pressing, which I believe is like the Scranton plant. But viewers can correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the N pressing. So this is an N17 and an N34. So this thing was pressed so many times. So when Joe was telling me that like the production copy was used, I mean, I guess it was probably run a number of times. And
oh yeah, tons of times, I'm sure.
And then finally, one more copy. This is actually a British copy. I have this and I think it's cool. So Wee Small Hours came out in 1955, which was the transition year from 10-inch LP to 12-inch LP. So this is the second 10-inch LP. So there's two of them. This is the second one. There's a first one as well. It came out as 10-inch in the UK as well as the US. And then also it came out as a 7-inch, 4 7-inches. And I believe in the US, it came out as like a 7-inch gatefold. So it's like 2 7-inch gatefolds. But it could have also been released as single 7 inches, 4 single 7 inches. So it was released in a number of formats in 1955. And this UK one, it sounds good, but it doesn't sound as good as the other ones I'm showing right now. And it probably is because it came from maybe a tape copy or who knows what the source was. I'll just quickly show the label of this one. So I do have a number of pressings of this. I'm really familiar with the title. It is, if you had to ask me what's my favorite Sinatra record, I would say this. I generally really love the ones that I just mentioned, the riddle ones. So Songs for Swingin' Lovers, Swingin' Affair, Sings for Only the Lonely, and Wee Small Hours. There's two by Gordon Jenkins that are also Torch albums. So Sinatra did concept albums where he would do a Torch album. So Wee Small Hours would be considered a Torch album where he's doing ballads. It's a little depressing. And then he would do swing albums. So like Swingin' Affair. So those upbeat tracks. And you'll notice that the whole album has that, has swing songs. And for Torch albums, the whole album's Torch albums. So Wee Small Hours came out in 55, and it was technically, I think, the third Capitol title. There was the first one was a 10-inch called Songs for Young Lovers, which I absolutely love. It is one of my favorite Frank Sinatra records. I think he may have been like 37 or 38 at the time. His voice is great. I think Nelson Riddle does a track on it, and the rest is Axel Stordahl, who he had a relationship with when he was at Columbia. And so I believe that those are the correct details. And then he did another 10-inch that I'm forgetting the name of. It has a purple cover. And anyway, I think, what is it?
I was just saying anyway.
Anyway, and that one I think is when he really started collaborating with Nelson Riddle. And then from there, 1955, the 12-inch Wee Small Hours came out. And it's a wonderful album. When we have Joe on, he'll be able to talk about the history a little bit. But in his personal life, he was married to Ava Gardner for I think like 7 years. And at this point, I believe that, the infidelity in the relationship was there. And she was, I think, in Spain dating, dating bullfighters and stuff like that. So anyway, so Frank was pretty depressed about it is the story. He also, I think in 53, he won an Oscar from Here to Eternity. And the story is that Ava Gardner helped him get that role. although I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, but I think that's what the belief is. So in 55, he puts Wee Small Hours. Wee Small Hours was recorded in 54 and 55. Nelson Riddle, Capitol Studio A, I believe. Correct me if that's wrong. And it's a wonderful album. And before we get into kind of the sonics of it, I do want to share my screen and just go into some details. So we have the pre-order on the Tone Poet Blue Note website. You can certainly pre-order it here. You could pre-order probably at the In Groove, on Amazon. I think this is going to be all online retailer. So whatever your preference is, you could order it there.
Yep.
And the cost is going to be just under $40, so $38.98. And the release date is November 14th. So Chris, what do you think of, so this is a Tone Poet. So
Yes.
can you kind of just, for people who don't know, tell us a little bit about Tone Poet?
Well, if anybody's watching this and they don't know what Tone Poet is, I don't know what to tell them. But I mean, obviously, yeah, Tone Poet's the flagship, reissue series that Blue Note has had for 4 or 5 years now, probably.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We were looking on the last live stream, and I think there's 130 or 150 of them at this point.
Yep.
Which is kind of crazy. I think it's neat that he's kind of expanding into. Well, we talked about Capitol well over a year ago when he told us that was going to happen, and then the Blue Surge came out, a few months ago, and now this one. So I think it's cool. And on the Discord we were talking about, some people were thinking this was weird because it's not a Blue Note. But I went through all of the Tone Poets, and like 20% of them aren't Blue Notes.
Yeah,
full,
and
20%.
And they have done vocal Tone Poets before. Famously, Chet Baker sings on Pacific Jazz or World Pacific, whatever the label was at the time. And yeah, so they're doing this one. I think it fits in. I'm not going to argue Frank Sinatra is a jazz vocalist. He didn't identify as that. And I think, he did a lot of pop. In the 40s, he was, a pop artist, and he had radio shows and television shows. And he sung all different, types of styles. And he certainly did jazz. Like when he was on his label Reprise, he teamed up with Count Basie for a number of titles. And he has Sinatra at the Sands with Basie as well, which is a fantastic record. So, he definitely is adjacent to the genre. And like I mentioned, like Harry Sweets Edison is on this, and he's absolutely a jazz trumpeter. So, I mean, there's definitely like jazz sensibilities within this production. So I think it fits in. And honestly, I think the definition of what style Sinatra is, I'm not particularly interested in that debate. He identified himself as a saloon singer. That's what he used to say. So, So I think we could all agree with that, with One for My Baby and One for the Road. That's definitely a saloon song. So
absolutely.
So yeah. So what else? I did want to discuss a great website. So for people who are collecting Sinatra LPs, this is definitely a website you want to check out. So this is 1150.com, and it's a website that was compiled and edited by Matthew Luthens, who is a mastering engineer. He works with Chad Kassem at Acoustic Sounds in the Mastering Lab, and he also works with Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio. He's kind of like the mentor of, I'm sorry, the mentee of Kevin Gray. I hope I'm not, overstating that, but he is kind of the guy that I think is getting a lot of the jazz work in particular, at least in our world. So he, earlier on, I don't know what year this happened, but he goes through basically all the Capitol Sinatra years. So this is 1953, as I mentioned. So you see that Frank Sinatra Songs for Young Lovers. That's that 10-inch I mentioned. The Swing Easy, that's the other 10-inch. So he put out these two 10-inches, and it was reissued as a 12-inch, so you can get all this material. Again, Songs for Young Lovers is excellent. The songs on it are great. The arrangements are great. His voice is excellent. And then you can see Wee Small Hours. So this website takes you from 53 to 62, and I believe why it ends in 62 is that's when his contract with Capitol, I think, officially ends, and there is overlap with his reprise title. So this Sinatra Basie is a reprise title. This All Alone's a reprise. I actually think Point of No Return is the last Capitol, and that might be 62. And then it kind of gets in. This one here, Sinatra Sings, is I believe it's a compilation, so it's not a single release. Apologies, my dogs are barking in the background. But I do recommend this, and I dropped a link to it in the description. Also in the description, we have the Jazz Bums Discord, which does have a Sinatra channel. So if you're into Sinatra, come and hang out there. The invite's free. You can come and chat with us. If you're into jazz, certainly come and join us. So that's in the description below. And the reason why I show this is they have this Wee Small Hours. And what Matthew Luthens does is he crowdsources the Hoffman forums and a bunch of people who have different pressings of this title, and they would send them to him. I think he would digitize them, and they would do blind listening, and they would rank what their favorites are. It also gives you a lot of history. So Wee Small Hours, a number of the reissues use what they call the wet mix, which I believe is when reverb is added. And you want to get the dry mix. I mean, that's kind of what people's preference is the dry mix. So he goes through all the ones that you'd want to get. They rank them. They tell you which ones to get. The reason why I have that 2014 one is because they rank that super high. As an imprint title, it's an excellent, it was the go-to copy to get. And then, yeah, so this is it's fun to read through. And also, if you're looking to buy these, this will give you a little bit of direction as to like what pressings you want to look out for and which ones you want to avoid. So I just wanted to give that a shout out because it's been a great resource for me.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. We're 17 minutes in. You haven't told us about the comparison of how the Tone Poet sounds to your other copies.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Sorry. My dogs are wilding out right now. And my camera's getting blurry. Okay. So I listened to, so it came in today and I really want to hear how it sounded. I had really high expectations because I have Tone Poet Blue Notes and I have all different other pressings of those same Blue Notes. And I kind of have an idea of what to expect. So, Van Gelder Blue Notes versus Tone Poet Blue Notes, I have an understanding of what the differences are. And I do like both of them for different reasons. I love early pressings. I love some of the represses, and then I love the Tone Poets. So I was going in thinking there may be a similar difference to these as well. And what I noticed is I listened to my first D1 copy, I listened to the 2014 copy, and then I listened to the Tone Poet. And I have to say, they all sound very good. It's a really well-recorded album in the first place. So I think if you have any of those copies, as long as they're not noisy, if the vinyl's not noisy, I think you're fine. They're all great. The D1 pressing to me, and after I go through this, I'll say what I listened on. I have a modest setup, so take it for what it's worth. Your mileage may vary. But I noticed that his voice on the D1 pressing is nice and clear. And the instrumentation is not as clear as some of the D1 pressing sounds good, but the clarity in the instrumentation isn't really there. But his voice is really front and center, and it does sound very good. And I like the D1 pressing better than the N pressings that I mentioned. Yeah. The 2014 one, the clarity for the instruments is very good. His voice is also very present. I like that one better than the D1 pressing. If I had to do apples to apples there, I like that one better. However, the vinyl is a little noisy. And then finally, the Tone Poet, I feel like his voice is a little bit more detailed, and it makes a big difference. Like you can hear when he ends certain phrases, the sound of like the wind going through his lips at some points. Like it is really exceptionally clear. It's really good, and the instruments sound excellent as well. I feel like in terms of like overall instrument separation, detail, the low end, the mid range, and his vocals and treble, I think it just sounds more clear to me. It's a little clearer. So I got to edge out this Tone Poet, and it's pressed at RTI, and this test pressing is dead silent. I mean, it is like compared to the other ones, it is absolutely silent. So I would recommend checking it out. If you don't have a copy, the Tone Poet is what I would recommend to get. If you have the other copies, that's great. They do sound very good. The Tone Poet does beat it out, in my opinion. And I'll just quickly talk through what I'm listening on. So I have a Riga Planar 6 with the Riga Exact 2 moving magnet. I do use a mono switch that my friend John, who online is known as Bitbop Boom, he made for me. So I do use a mono switch. It is a stereo cart. The phono preamp is an iFi Zen Phono, and then my amp is a Cambridge Audio AXR 100, and my speakers are Kef LS50 Metas. And I just use, I don't think I have like name brand speaker cables or anything, but they're not cheap. I got decent cables as well. So that's what I was listening on. And yeah, I would say the Tone Poet is sonically superior than the other ones. I would like to hear if somebody is able to do like an A/B testing against, especially the Ron McMaster 2014. If you have two turntables and you could toggle between the two, I think it would be really fascinating to hear the differences, because I'm switching, I'm stopping, switching the album, starting again. And that lag really does limit kind of the memory of exactly what I'm hearing. However, I really anchored to the first 3 tracks of the album, in particular the third track, which I feel like his vocals are exceptional on. And yeah, so I think it's a home run. I'm super happy with it. I hope they do more. And yeah, so that's kind of the assessment of the test pressing. So I just wanted to kind of get out there and just, put this out there to get people excited, because I'm a huge Sinatra file, and I hope more people are able to discover him. And I think this is a great entry point, because outside of the sonics, if we just talk about kind of the artistry of this album, I feel like he's at a kind of a peak emotive state, where I've said this on the live stream, on our Friday live stream before about Sinatra, that there may be other records that are sonically superior, like Sings for Only the Lonely. That was done, I think, in like 57 or 58. There's a stereo mix of that. So this is 55. So there was no stereo mix. This is recorded in mono, because that was the standard of the time. And, but I will say the performance itself is magnificent. And I think that it taps into kind of a humanity with him, and an emotional state that's like this melancholic, sorry, depressed state, but in a way that is revealing of like the human condition. So not to over romanticize it, but it's a wonderful album, and it is my favorite Frank Sinatra album. And if they were going to pick one to put out, this is the one I would have hoped they did. So I'm really, really happy with it. It's a great sounding record. The vinyl sounds great. I don't have the gatefold jacket, because I just have the test pressing. Yeah. I assume that's going to be done very well. I think.
Are you gonna buy a copy so you can have the cover?
I think I'll just keep the test pressing. I probably won't buy a copy of it. I'm happy with this, and I have 4 other copies. So there's, but I will say, if I didn't get this test pressing, I would 100% buy it if I didn't have the vinyl. So what do you think, Chris?
I don't know. I think I'm gonna actually buy a copy. I'm not really a Frank guy, but I mean, it'd be kind of cool to have, one really nice sounding, record.
I hope you get it, and I would love to hear what your reaction is to it, because I do feel like it is really an exceptional piece of art, and I think that it can be appreciated. And you don't have to like all, like, Sinatra, I think, gets a rap for maybe having a lot of cheese, but there's albums that, like,
he was part of the Rat Pack. So.
Yeah. There's a level of that is part of his catalog. And there's better albums and worse albums, but I will say the early Capitol years are, I consider, and I think many people consider, a peak, if not his peak, recording output. So I think it's worth checking out. It is a torch album. I think people are going to like it. And I hope people discover Sinatra through it. And I hope Joe is able to continue putting out more of his Capitol records, because I could rattle off 10 of his Capitol records that are fantastic, that I would love to, that I think are worthy of this treatment. Now, I will say Mobile Fidelity has put out a number of Frank Sinatra titles. There's the kind of a famous Sinatra box that came out in 1983. And the wee small hours on that, if you go to the Matthew Luthan's 1150 website, it says that it was a huge miss by them, that they didn't do a great job with it.
Oh,
And actually, this Ron McMaster one, I think they say that there are some dropouts in it. Like they like cut a few seconds of, I think, like one of the tracks or something like that. So you can go on that website and read more about it. But I think that, assuming, this is the complete, untouched second master tape that was run simultaneously, I think, it's a fantastic project that Joe and the folks at UME and the Sinatra family and Kevin Gray and everyone involved. And, I was looking at the gatefold jacket, and they do the photography inside. So if you're familiar with the Tone Poets for Blue Note, Francis Wolff did the photography in the Hackensack and Inglewood Cliffs recording studios, and they put those in the gatefold. So for this, William Claxton did the photography for this session at Capitol. So that photography, and I believe that's what's on the back. So I believe this picture here of Frank is William Claxton. So photo by William Claxton. So, great photographer, William Claxton. So you're going to get that gatefold with some of those photos, and I think some copy in there. So, to provide some details around it. So I think it's going to be a great release. And I feel like it's full circle, because when I first started getting into record collecting, Sinatra grabbed me for whatever reason, and I got obsessed with him. And he's the reason why I really got into, jazz music. And now, and I never thought they would do something like this, because I've always heard that you would have to involve the family, Tina Sinatra. And I didn't really think that there was too much incentive financially for them to do this, because, I'm sure they license his songs and get, a ton of money through that. And pressing 3,000 LPs at, $39, I don't think it's game changing for them. However, I do feel like there's a certain prestige with how this is done. And I'm sure that when you go to hi-fi shows in the near future, people are going to be playing Sinatra, which, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I think that there's a good likelihood people will have this in their arsenal to hear, it is mono, but, to hear some audiophile, quote unquote, audiophile, Capitol Frank Sinatra from the original master tapes. So I'm excited for it. I hope it gets people excited about Sinatra. And I hope, people start building up a little Sinatra collection, because there's so much good stuff to get into.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think that's it, but we have to check in with the poll here. So let me go back.
Yeah.
Give me a second, because my browser crashed. I cannot believe my luck. Okay. All right. So we have 60 votes in the poll. 58% of those 60 votes is a yes, 59%. 33% are a no, and then 8% are maybe. So we've done polls like this before, and 60%, if you want to call it a conversion rate,
that's huge.
is pretty outstanding for a title, given how vast everybody's tastes are. So
of course, everyone that's voted is watching a video about the actual record. So,
well, the thing is, you do have to remember that this poll is brought to you by Jazz Bums Polling. Jazz Bums Polling is for entertainment only. So there you go. So for what it's worth, but we have about 61 votes now. So 60% of people are a yes. I'm going to end the poll, and we can end the stream. We live stream every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So subscribe to the channel and you'll get the notification. We also have the Jazz Bums Discord, so you can come and hang out with us there, and the invite's in the description below. I also have a personal Substack, and that's linked below too. I may do a Substack article on this release and go a little bit more in I'll probably touch on a lot of the detail here, but I'll organize it a little bit more so it's easy to scan. And I might put some pictures of different pressings up, and I'll link out to all different types of sources. So if you're interested in that, you can follow my Substack. The link is in the description below. And we also have an Instagram, so come and check that out too. And you can see pictures of the test pressing there. So, All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks for joining, Chris. We'll see you guys on Friday.
See everybody.
Later.